Hey everybody, you are listening to Canary Cry Radio and Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy Basil.
And my name is Gonz. Welcome to episode number 185.
185. We're back at it, folks, and we are, I don't even know what this, I mean, certainly grateful to God and to our guests. Maybe a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit starstruck. Today we have an individual that we have been covering for many years, especially on Canary Cry News Talk, as he pops up every few years during very important election cycles. And we finally got the chance to speak with him. I will say, he is a busy man, and we, of course, have a penchant, a habit for going many hours and taking up hours and hours of the lifetime of our guests. Today we have a very short time frame that we are still grateful for, but you'll recognize the man, the myth, the legend himself, the founder of the Transhumanist Party. It's Zoltan Istvan, folks. We got a great conversation. Gonz, what do you have your feet touched the ground yet?
Not quite yet. I'm still on a buzz from having a conversation with him. He's such a nice guy, and I know that there may have been some disagreements, but I was a little surprised at some of his takes that you'll hear in a second here, and pleasantly surprised, by the way. And looking forward to maybe having a longer conversation with him. We were unable to get to the deep,
so much
eschatological and existential conversations that we wanted to get to, the spiritual conversations and things like that. But the man is busy. He's running for governor of California. Not an easy thing to do, and so he was. But
I will say he, in the few seconds we got to speak before he had to jump off after the recording, we're again pleasantly surprised to get the impression that he, is also thinking about and interested in exploring a lot of the deep, topsy-turvy, existential, spiritual, cosmic questions about transhumanism. And like you said, a little bit surprised to get to learn about his stance this time around on the campaign trail. The man, of course, who famously founded the Transhumanist Party, had lots of positive things to say about transhumanism, transcending what we're used to, what is traditional for a human being in a human body, found himself at a crossroads, seeing as how we've gone from the
theoretical to the practical.
The theoretical to the practical, and even all the way to the political situation when it comes to AI, AGI, robotics, things like that. So for our longtime listeners, this will be a very fascinating chapter in Zoltan's life and campaign history here. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, we think you're going to have a great time getting to know this guy. Of course, you can really just do any Google search and find his participation in the cultural conversation. But he does have a campaign website, doesn't he, Gonz?
He does, yeah. It's ZoltanIstvan2026.com. You can find all the links and everything in the show notes. But yeah, he does outline a little bit more of the issues at hand on his website that we were unable to really cover in this conversation.
Dive deep, man.
Yeah, but he does. He is thinking about these issues, I think, from the proper place, at least in terms of what he'd like to see with things like AI. AI being the main crux of the conversation today.
Look at the face, look at the hair. I mean, if this guy doesn't have a face to run California, I don't know who does.
It's as if somebody prompted DALL-E to spit out the perfect face to run California as governor, and it gave us Zoltan Istvan here.
Yeah, exactly. And we get into, of course, transhumanism. We touch on the technocracy topic. Of course, he has lots of things to say and perhaps even repent for when it comes to AI, AGI, robotics. We get into UBI, all the very important, real, now political questions that, unfortunately, we are not seeing a ton of up-and-coming politicians get into. In fact, they seem to be either playing it safe or not interested or not knowledgeable at all about these things. So this is certainly an opportunity to inject this out into the conversation. So we'll get out of the way here. We'll leave you now as we dive into the world of our half-hour discussion, conversation, interview, I don't know, perhaps deep, long-lasting friendship with candidate Zoltan Istvan for California governor. Let's go.
We have a very special guest today. His name is Zoltan Istvan. He's a futurist, a journalist, and author of the philosophical sci-fi novel The Transhumanist Wager. Zoltan founded the Transhumanist Party and ran for U.S. president under its banner in 2016. Some of you guys who have been with us for a long time remember us covering that. Later ran as a libertarian for governor of California in 2018 and sought the Republican presidential nomination in 2020. And now he's back in 2025 for 2026, this time running for governor of California as a Democrat. As a Californian, this is very interesting to me and important to me. His campaign centers around science, longevity, and bold visions of the future driven by emerging technologies. Zoltan, welcome to Canary Cry Radio. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me on.
We are so excited to have you here, and longtime listeners of ours will be intimately familiar with what you've been up to, at least for the past 10 years. Politically, very interesting. In 2016, you ran for president of the United States as a member of the Transhumanist Party. In fact, the founder of the Transhumanist Party. Again, you ran in 2018 for governor of California as libertarian, taking one baby step towards sort of more recognizable political parties there, or at least more stereotypical. In 2020, again for the president of the United States, and this time as a Republican. And so here we are in 2026, coming in as a Democrat for the governor of California. I like a versatile individual. That's very impressive. The amount of, I guess, organizational affiliation that you've been able to cover. What are you finding now when it comes to, well, let me start with this. For those who have maybe just a cursory idea of what transhumanism is, and as the founder of the Transhumanist Party, can you explain a little bit to the people what transhumanism is, what it means to you, and how relevant is it in politics?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. And it's going to be a bit brutal. I'll be honest with you. This is one of the very first interviews we're doing after launching the campaign. And everyone's going to point out that I have run for all these parties. So let me just jump into that really first. I think I specialize, I endorse, I advocate for science and technology. That's really my thing, and innovation. Nothing has moved the world more than those things. Whether it's trying to extend human life, lifespans, whether it's trying to create artificial intelligence, whether it's, however it is, it's always science and technology that's moving the planet forward in civilization. And I stand behind that. I stand behind the scientific method. And for me, right now, I'm part of the Democratic Party, and I completely support them. But beyond parties, I am a science guy, a science candidate. And that's how I plan to run. And if I was to win the governorship of California, I would be running, using methods of the scientific method. What is the best way to fulfill a problem given the parameters? Find me a formula that is the best used. Well, this is what the scientific method is. You keep testing things until you find the best thing that works, and then you go with it. And I think when we talk about most traditional politics, candidates are kind of going with whatever the voters want, whatever seems to get them elected into office again and again. It's not real. They're not really trying to change the country or the state for the better. Whereas I really want to do the best for the majority using the best science principles that are at hand. And that's really why I'm jumping around from party to party. It's not about politics for me. It's about actually trying to find policy that's best for you and I and the greater majority of whatever the state or the country, whatever the world, whatever I'm running for to try to help. And so that's just important to put that out there so people don't think I'm the ultimate flip flopper. It seems like that, but my ideas over the last 10 years haven't really swayed much. Maybe 10, 15% they've gone to the left or to the right, but I'm supporting science and using that as a way to, I think, improve people's lives. And that said, my big thing and what people mostly know me about is transhumanism, this idea of using science and technology to really modify the human being and become better. I got to be honest, we are to some extent dropping that label out of this gubernatorial race, and at least regarding me, mainly because it scares people, it throws off people. But transhumanism is a wonderful philosophy. I completely support it. The idea that we want to overcome biological death, or the idea that we want to at least live as long as possible, the idea that people that have disabilities, we can get them back to being fully in shape or whatever it is that they want. I mean, transhumanism is a wonderful philosophy for anyone. And so I still completely support it. But really, my gubernatorial run has a lot more to do with just trying to bring science and innovation into people's lives and try to really make California, the one of the largest economies in the world, a much stronger state, because it's been falling by the wayside.
Great. I will say, as a show that has covered you for at least since 2016, enjoying following your political journey, I will say, even when you were a transhumanist party, libertarian party, Republican party, Democrat party, it has been clear throughout your positions that you've always still been a transhumanist at heart. So don't worry, we see the consistency over the last 10 years or so. Someone hearing you explain your, political transhumanism might have a term ring in their minds, technocrat. How do you relate to the word technocrat?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of means people running the world through technology. And I think that word technocrat doesn't encapsulate really what I'm trying to do. Basically, we're a species, and we're a state, we're a country. And we have found that using science and technology has dramatically, at every turn, improved our lives. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to run society with technology by any means. In fact, I would prefer something more human-centered. In fact, that's a lot of what my campaign is about, is trying to say, I love transhumanism, but AI has gone too far. It's kind of jumped outside the boat of transhumanism, and now it's becoming its own kind of maybe demon or its own kind of monster, and we better take some consideration to maybe even stop it. So there is a point when, I don't really, think that we're going to be running the world entirely through science and technology. What I'm hoping, though, is we will be using ideas like the scientific method to try to best figure out what's best for humans. And that means being reasonable and logical, working out formulas that actually benefit the majority of the people. It's not necessarily ruling by technology and science. It's much more governing through use of it and through the reasonability of it.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Are you aware of the history of the technocrats? I mean, there was a Technocracy Inc. about 100 years ago. And interestingly enough, as far as our research and our observations, some of the, political movements that have taken place, especially under Trump, is very much in line with some of the things that were talked about by technocrats 100 years ago. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think Trump's in a very difficult situation. And bear in mind that, one of the reasons I ran for the Republicans is I was running directly against Trump, who at the time I thought I could do a better job then, and was worried that the presidency in itself was being harmed. I got to be honest, Trump seems to be doing a more reasonable job this time than before, and he's not so new. I think economically there are some issues and things like that. But, he's a Republican. He brings in Republican ideas. That's what the Democrats get for letting him win. And I think, he's going to be running in a way that supports his accumulation of power. I think that's what that guy's about. I think we all knew that. And, if that's a technocracy, then that's we can call it that. But I think really what's happening is, we have to make sure the other branches of government are there to support that one person doesn't accumulate too much power, and that one person can't run the country as a technocracy, and that one person essentially is kind of just stays in their place and can govern. And he has that right, that democratic right to do that for 3.5 more years. And that's a right that he won. But I think to say that he's necessarily, falling into being some historical kind of conspiracy theory of technocrats, it's hard to know that. I do worry, though, with AI on the horizon, that somebody has to win the AI race, whether China or America or Russia, someone has to do it. So if Trump has to dig deep to do that, that's something you're going to see play out again and again. And I've said this before. I kind of think the tariffs are designed to hurt China, hurt its economy, make it so it has less money to invest into China. And that's one form of trying to, remain what I call the AI imperative. You have to be the leader in artificial intelligence. There's really no way. This is like nuclear weaponry where, everyone has a couple nuclear, maybe thousands or hundreds of nuclear bombs. It doesn't matter who wins in that game. But in AI, it matters entirely because one AI can send the other AI a virus and completely wipe it out, stop all our traffic lights, stop all the water coming into your house, the natural gas, the electricity. I mean, you can shut down civilization, send us to the dark ages very, very quickly. So having the foremost AI in your country, and coming from a democratic country, is really important. And I think, if we're going to throw in conspiracy theories like technocracy from 100 years ago, I think it's important to say that, well, there's also this idea building out there that we have to do whatever it takes to beat China and any other country in the development of a superintelligence, if that's the direction we're going. And unfortunately, I'm not sure capitalism is going to allow us any other direction than that.
Yeah, that's well stated there.
When you come up with the topic of AI, which used to be, at least earlier in our career, and especially when we first encountered you, AI was a futurist, online kind of fringe conversation to have. And boy, oh boy, are we on the precipice, maybe on the far side of the precipice now, of AI being an entirely mainstream concern, and not just an intellectual concern, but as you point out, a total political, practical concern. And it certainly is something that, like technocrats, has a lot of, maybe spooky connotations. People are very worried about this. And I think it's clear that addressing AI is perhaps even the most important political message to get out there. So how do you plan to address people's fears, perhaps some deep human concern about humanity, losing our humanity, transcending our humanity? One interesting part about this point in time is, these big existential questions are no longer relegated to long, meandering, late-night conversations. They are mainstream sound clips that will steer the future of the country.
Yeah. Let's make no mistake whatsoever. The wolf of AI is at the door. It smells you. It knows everything about you very soon, if not already. It's the greatest threat I think humanity has ever faced. It's definitely an extinction level possibility event. We're talking 2 years before I think AI is as smart as us, if not already. I think from what I've been hearing, they are already working on AI as smart as us. That's just not being released yet. And once it takes the next step beyond that, in 2 to 4 years, being smarter than us, I mean, it could easily be game over. We just don't know. We've never had anything like this happen. It's very similar to inviting an alien species to planet Earth, one that is smarter than you, more powerful than you. We would never, ever do that. No president, no government would ever say, let's invite some super strong aliens to planet Earth and see what happens. It's just not how we do. We're the alpha predators on planet Earth. We spent millions of years to become that from our Neanderthal ancestors and things like that. Being the top of the food chain and not being a tasty part of it, this is very important. And so we don't want to invite something else here. And I have some op-eds coming out soon about this, but I feel, I know I supported AI for many years. I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever. But now that it's here, now that I'm seeing the jobs it's stealing, now that I'm seeing the power it can wield, now that I'm seeing how little control humans would eventually have, I am dramatically worried. And I think governments need to stand up entirely and stop this, stop it in its tracks. In fact, I've said this before, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think, as I mentioned, I think a lot of the tariffs have to do with AI. I think Trump will probably start wars in order to make sure that other people are not able to develop AI. I mean, this is a geopolitical existential event. We are all going to have to get together, whether we like it or not, and at some point stop ourselves and say, are we really going to bring in an intelligence that's going to outdo us in every way and bring tens of millions of humanoid robots as tall as us? Are we really going to create a matrix scenario? And I think hopefully humanity will pull back and get together. But in the meantime, nobody seems to be slowing down in its development of it right now, and it's absolutely frightening. And I'm a little bit I don't want to say ashamed, but I am worried that I have been promoting it for 10, 15 years, writing about it in places like the New York Times and everywhere, and all of a sudden I'm in about technology and innovation. I'm in big trouble because I've been promoting this. So now one of the reasons I am running for governor is to try to say, listen, I made a mistake. I was too optimistic, and we better pull back very quickly.
Very interesting. That's fascinating that that you have that perspective there. And it's interesting for us because we've kind of been warning about AI for about 10 years, and now that there's a product out there, we do tap into it. It's very powerful when it comes to helping you organize your thoughts or generating images or whatever it might be. Of course, it's not perfect, and certainly it's dependent on the prompts and everything else. But you mentioned the robots there, the embodiment of AI, this next level. It's not just a software on a screen or a chat bot, but an actual embodied, robotics doing things, carrying things out. This is, again, an issue that is not being discussed by many people, especially politicians or people in politics. And it seems like you are facing multiple Goliaths here. You have the in terms of the geopolitical front, you've mentioned China. China's influence in America, especially California, is pretty strong. The influence in economically and everything else, real estate, all kinds of ways that China has influenced California. So there's that front, and then also the rolling out of robotics. We've been tracking companies like Miso Robotics and Flippy, and the burger flipping robot, stuff like that. We've seen drive-throughs start to use AI for ordering food, things of that nature. So we know jobs are going to start to be overturned by robotics, especially because business owners and people that are running different corporations and everything else, it's much more cost effective in the long term to have robots that don't get tired. We've read all the articles over the years. Oh, the robots don't get tired. And we were told, oh, the robots are going to work with the humans first. Don't worry. But now we're at that point where, the humans don't really seem like they're needed much. So how do you tackle all these different issues on the robotic issue?
Well, let me first say what you started your question about which is ChatGPT and the generative AIs are awesome. We all use them. Mm-hmm. I love them, and I don't want them to go away at all. And I hope as Elon Musk has said, by the end of next year, this year, and the end of the next year is going to be tens of millions. We're going to have all these humanoid robots, hopefully in our houses, in maybe 2027. In fact, one of my big campaign promises is I'm going to put a 5-foot humanoid robot in every household in California to do dishes, to wash your clothes, to drive your kids to soccer practice, to guard you at night, to babysit, to whatever it is. We could save ourselves a dozen hours a week, maybe more. I mean, this is like having a maid. This is the thing we want. The problem, though, is that I want the generative AIs as they are now a little bit better. I want the robot to do my dishes and cook and all that other stuff. But what happens when the companies take the next level and they're like, well, we're not satisfied with AGI, artificial general intelligence as equal as humans. I'm not even sure I'm actually comfortable with that too. I'd prefer the robots to always be a little bit less smart than us. At least until we have a better grasp on, what's going to happen. But what they're talking about is trying to, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, and all these people are talking about trying to build a super intelligence. We have no idea what's going to happen. I just, finished my graduate degree at the University of Oxford. Nick Bostrom, one of the leading AI philosophers, was one of my professors. I mean, people have been writing papers on how sideways this can go. We have no idea. It'd be 50-50 whether an AI that's 100 times smarter than us, and that will happen eventually because the AIs will build out themselves and make themselves smarter, will cause a human level extinction for us. So are we committing suicide by bringing AI into the world? Well, we probably have a 50-50 shot. I think it's the most reasonable thing to say if we take it beyond intelligence that's equivalent to ourselves. And I know everyone wants to do that. So, we have to we have to make that decision. But as you pointed out, we all use AI. It's awesome. I can't wait to, have driverless cars take my kids to soccer practice so I don't have to do that. I mean, this is the kind of thing we want. But if we take it one step too far, or if China takes it one step too far, we are in a very significant problem.
Yeah, this is where the universal basic income comes in, where economically maybe people can share in the the profits made by these robots that are walking around everywhere.
Honestly, I felt like when you were describing people losing your jobs, you were a little optimistic. I'm seeing jobs being lost by the tens of thousands in the Bay Area. For example, even just morning, Microsoft said we're cutting 3% of the workforce. I mean, they're not cutting it because they're not doing good economically. They're cutting it because AI is replacing that job. So everyone's job is at stake. Maybe not yours, to be honest. If you're a podcaster, that actually could. I think human things like that, or even being maybe a barista at a coffee shop where you actually want to see humans, that could last. But I'm in real estate development. That's one of my primary kind of professional endeavors. And if I could hire all robots to build houses and not be sued because someone tripped over lumber and didn't get sick or whatever, and pay them less, or not pay at all because I bought them. I mean, everyone is going to do this just because that's the way capitalism works. It's possible the government will step in. I don't know if I want the government to step in, though. What I actually want the government to do is to give everybody enough money, like a universal basic income, give everyone a robot to take care of chores, and have people like you and me have much more leisurely lives. I mean, I think that's the goal of my gubernatorial campaign, is not the idea that we're going to stop AI from taking jobs. We're going to actually stop people from going to work 9 to 5, 6 days a week, busting their ass, and not even being able to afford a house. We're going to stop people from having to labor till they're 70 or 80 and finally retire, only to die, a day later or whatever it is. The point is, we can create incredibly leisurely lifestyle with robots and AI, but the government has to help that through different a process that means a universal basic income, maybe taxing the companies that are building the machines, building the AI. If a company takes your job because it created a robot, then maybe that company should pay the taxes or give you options in stocks or something like that, in order so that you have the security, because you will probably never work again. So there are a lot of different ideas we have between my team and I in the gubernatorial campaign. We're approaching a lot of different avenues on how we could do it. But the bottom line is, we're trying to sell this idea that you may not need to work 9 to 5. That's not what your existence is going to be. Let's create a more leisurely lifestyle, maybe 1 to 2 days of work a week just to keep busy, but maybe not even that. But let AI and robots take it. The problem, though, again, is we have to be very careful that we don't let AI become some super intelligence and then our whole idea goes to the wayside. We need to keep it so that we actually create a utopia and not a dystopia. And that's going to take some fancy work at the governmental level and also at the private level.
Wow, a robot in every home and a UBI in every wallet. That's a pretty solid futurist political platform there. And you're right, AI will be on the lips of every, at least smart politician. And with your history on the topic and honestly, your subsequent caution, which is a little bit hopeful, finding that balance between utopia and dystopia will be maybe the main focus of, if not 2026, it will begin in 2026 and repeat itself every campaign after that. Now, how do you see it in your political field as it is shaping up for governor of California? I'm assuming that there are some candidates who are smart enough to at least start thinking about this. How do they stack up? How do you think things are going to go when the election comes around?
Well, they're not talking about it. It's crazy. And I'll tell you why they don't talk about it. Because you're going to lose voters the moment you talk about such, significant change through society, civilization, the economy, and everything. So I think, we have this issue that most politicians don't want to broach this subject, because if they do, they lose votes and they lose their popularity. Whereas, of course, I'm just striving to get as much attention as I can about the issues at hand. We'll see whether I can become a top 3 candidate. It's probably possible, but we have to, work hard and really get out this message. But I'm not doing this because I necessarily am going to win or not going to win. I'm doing this because somebody across the country has to stand up and say, wait a sec, we have an issue. And, it's like they want to talk about environmental catastrophe all day long, the Democrats, and that is fine. But that is like 30 years out, maybe 50 years out, maybe 20 years out, but whatever it is, it's not 18 months out like the AI is. I mean, I'm telling you, the Google people are working on AI that's probably as smart as us already. So it could be in the next 6 months, all the cars in the freeway stop, all the lights go off because AI, AGI, superintelligence has already been created. I mean, we're at a zone when we better start getting really, examining the issues at hand. And even if politicians don't like it, even if it ruins their popularity, they better talk about it and try to come up with some plans. And it's more than just a basic income. There's a philosophical discussion we all need to have on how far we want to take technology. I mean, it's one thing for a transhumanist to say, hey, I would like to overcome biological death because I like life and I want to live as long as possible. Living to 150 in good health seems an excellent plan for me. But AI is very different. We're talking about introducing to planet Earth something that's going to be hundreds of times smarter than us, might look at us like we look at, ants. And how will that, what if it's AI's upset at us for the environmental damage we did, for example, or because we do these weird physics experiments that may want to, destroy the planet. And sometimes we do crazy stuff, and the point though is AI may not like that. As superintelligence may say, you know what, you guys are a bother on planet Earth. We better have these discussions. As sci-fi as they sound, they're no longer sci-fi. We need to talk about beyond even just what's going to happen economically. Yeah, there's no question. 90% of everyone's going to lose their jobs. And the new kind of economy is going to be very human-centered because only jobs you want to have is the jobs when people want to go to people just for the sake of going to people for services. But I mean, in terms of cooking and cleaning and all that, we're probably all just going to want to have robots do stuff for us. So we have to find a middle ground. But most importantly, the government has to be involved now because when this happens in 18 months, when they start mass producing, they're on schedule to produce 10, 20, 30 million humanoid robots by next year and probably 150 to 200 million humanoid robots. I mean, you can see where this is going really quickly.
Right.
It'd only take, by the end of my, if I got into the governorship, by the end of my first term, we would probably have potentially 1 billion 5-foot, 6-foot tall humanoid robots on planet Earth. If they wanted to turn on us, and of course they can crush us in every single way because they're as agile as Olympians and they're as strong as weightlifters, I mean, we're in trouble. So we better think very long and hard, and politicians better pick up the ball and start talking about this.
Well, we absolutely agree with you on that point. And thank you so much, Zoltan Istvan, for your valuable time. I know things must be crazy over there, just getting ramped up. And there are so many things that we'd love to talk to you about. I mean, we could go for hours and maybe hopefully...
A list of 30 questions. We got to about 3. So,
hopefully someday we'll get that opportunity in the future. But to come in for a soft landing here, if your governorship, was seen, 100 years from now, where we'll find out if the robots have taken over or not. But if it's seen 100 years from now as a key turning point in California's sort of spiritual and cultural direction, not just as tech infrastructure, what legacy would you like to be remembered by?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I haven't even thought about that. Right now, I'm kind of on the apology tour where I'm saying, hey, because let's be honest, I've written, probably an entire book at this point on the positive nature of AI. I think one of the problems was, as a transhumanist and as somebody who is, interested very much in the future, we always thought we would be able to merge ourselves with artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. That was the goal of many futurists. And the problem is that our ability to do that, even like Elon Musk's Neuralink, the ability to, put implants in our brains and do crazy things like that, are nowhere near. They're decades still away from actually being able to merge yourself with AI. So what's happened is AI is here in like 2-3 years. And in terms of a super intelligence or an intelligence equivalent to us, and it's going to leave us behind without our ability to do anything with it. So from an evolutionary perspective, that becomes the next facet of evolution, the strongest one. And we're just kind of left in the dust. what I would like to make sure if I have any legacy, it's that I haven't been an accomplice in that happening, especially if humans end up getting the short end of the stick, and they probably will. Because when you look at, the one thing that Oxford taught me in the last 3-4 years going to graduate school there was predation is sort of how the world works. We're in a giant, it's kind of, we're all in the food chain, and we're all fighting for power. And a lot of people don't like to think of it in terms like that. But you think about just walk outside, turn off, have no power, have a war. It becomes very much a matter of power very quickly, even though we live in a civilization that is great right now in America. But the problem is it can fade very quickly. And if AI comes into this world smarter than us, it could very much take on all those same elements that have happened on planet Earth with all the other animals. I mean, you go to a jungle, it's basically don't get eaten tonight and try to eat something else so you can survive. Well, if AI treats us like that, like all biology is essentially treating itself in the jungle, we are in incredibly tough times, and it could easily lead to the extinction of the human species, or at least just a few of us surviving. So we have to be very careful that that doesn't happen. And I think my legacy would be that I have fought against that and tried to stop that and tried to get the word out. Whether I become governor or not is not important. What's important is that when they have gubernatorial debates, we discuss this issue. We don't just discuss the taxes and the immigration and this and that. We discuss this true existential risk that's really at our door. And we come to terms with what is it that's really going to make society better moving forward in the next 5, 10, 15 years, as opposed to a lot of the cultural wars, which, they come and go. But AI is not coming and going. This is an existential event. We need to deal with it.
Wow. Well, undoubtedly,
Great job.
AI will affect every campaign issue from immigration to taxes to everything. And like I said before, relieved a little bit with your caution and very happy to be the first stop on your apology tour. What an honor. Thank you so much. And we wish you luck in the campaign. And whenever you have an extra half hour, it'd be lovely to have you back on, figure out, solve the rest of the world's problems, or who knows, maybe we just have to band together to fight the robots. But thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's check in later somewhere down the road in the campaign. I'd appreciate that. But thank you so much for having me on, and it's been wonderful talking to you all again.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, folks, to this episode of Canary Cry Radio. Remember, you can find all of our Canary Cry Radio episodes spanning all the way back to 2012. Just search Canary Cry Radio on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you know the ones. And if that's not enough for you, of course, we have Canary Cry News Talk, which is a twice-a-week live stream show and podcast. Of course, you can search that same podcast player for Canary Cry News Talk, or find us on Rumble and or YouTube, amongst other video platforms. Canary Cry News Talk is a real hoot if you're interested in things like transhumanism, technocracy, keeping an eye on politics, of course, all with a flair, with a biblical lens, taking a look at the modern happenings around us in sort of an eternal interest. So check that out, both Canary Cry Radio for more interviews like this, and Canary Cry News Talk for your up-to-date news analysis and deconstruction. Gonz, what do you think?
Well, I think this is, first of all, we just interviewed a Democrat.
Whoa, that's
so
a first.
We're breaking some barriers on the
Look
show. Not
go.
that we're super political on the show, but I don't think we've ever interviewed a Democrat.
No, there was
so
Rand Paul, and that's mostly it. So yes, decidedly not a Democrat.
Right. So that's one thing, but I also think that our show here, Canary Cry Radio and Canary Cry News Talk, as well as Zoltan, I feel that there's a kin with us, because we have both been discussing these issues, maybe from a different perspective, but it really kind of felt like meeting a friend that you've never met in person for the first time, because we have been discussing these topics, and society and culture has reached a place where it is most definitely becoming political, economic and everything else. But ultimately, the politics is what's going to drive change or protection or however it may look when it comes to this issue of AI and robotics and everything else, which again, the companies and everybody else, they're ready to roll out. And Zoltan's ready to roll out. He wants 5-foot robots folding my clothes. I would love for a 5-foot robot to fold my clothes. I just don't want it to end up rebelling against me one day or my children.
Or indoctrinating your children, or
indoctrinating my children.
Surveilling every move you make, and using that data to sell to advertisers so that they can, oh man, once those robots start like including advertisements in their interactions with you. Yeah, I see your clothes are a little stiff. Perhaps you should try Tide dryer sheets for the softest. I mean, that's a dystopia. Nobody could expect.
No free clout.
Yeah.
You should have made up a name of a thing. But
check
anyway,
those privacy settings on the robots, folks.
And what about when robots start advertising to robots? I mean, that's going to be the real kicker. They're not going to even care about the human. This is, the robot needs a new arm.
Yeah.
Oh, robot 4753, your arm looks a little rattly. Here's a new arm, or whatever.
Instead of business to business, it's robot to robot.
R to R. Yeah, R to R is the next generation of business.
Yeah.
Well,
again, can't tell we didn't tell you so, folks. And to see the conversation trying its best to get into mainstream politics. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the rest of the pack takes the opportunity. And for Californians out there, Gonz, you included,
that's me.
Keep an eye out. And I think it's something, again, no matter where you are, with the politics happening in your area, if we, as those who have been paying attention, those who are, I don't know, in the know or not brand new to these topics, take the opportunity to reinforce just how important at least these conversations are. To have at local, state, who knows, maybe even national politics, then that will make sure that it doesn't sneak up on us. That's the real test here. Can we snap victory from the jaws of very sneaky defeat when it comes to the spell, the incantation, the thrall of the promise of AI, robotics, and some version of technocracy, and what that might mean for us puny humans.
Yeah, I hope that conversations like these are able to get people thinking, or at least researching, or at the very least conceptualizing and learning about these issues, because you're right. We will find out in the next 2-3 years whether we did preventative measures, or it's going to become a political issue because some robot smacked somebody or hurt a child or something like that, right? Like, it's too late at that point.
The proactive to reactive issue. Right. Now, what I think is very interesting too is, as was mentioned a couple times, Zoltan has run for various offices, various times, all under different political parties. And usually for a politician, at least historically, to change his position, not his position rather, but change his party affiliation, counts as a sort of negative. And I would understand if Zoltan was maybe, either a little hesitant or looking for a good answer about changing party affiliation so often. But I think the world is in a place now, and people are awake enough to see that a change of party affiliation is not, and probably should not, count necessarily as a bad thing like it used to. Flip-floppers, I think they're used to say, because, again, no matter what we agree or disagree with Zoltan on, we have been listening, reading, watching very closely for the last 10 years, and his concern has been consistent throughout. Now, he may, again, like he said, be on an apology tour, may have changed his feeling about certain aspects of AI and robotics, but for us here, that actually counts as a good thing. So we'll give him that, and it'll be interesting to see how others react to that as well. So there you go, folks.
And it just seems like he has more in common with some of the issues or concerns that we had brought up over the years, which is interesting to see because, again, AI and robotics, a lot more conceptual when we started this podcast. Now it's literal. It's on your front door. It's ready to go. It's knocking on your door literally. So, it's always an interesting thing to see. And I like that he's willing to change on some of those things as well. You know, I think it shows growth and an ability to read what's happening with culture and trying to address it. So I think it's coming from a good place.
Well, I will say this. If nothing else, I think our conversation with Zoltan proved to us that he is indeed a human being with all the messiness that comes along with that. And I'm not going to lie, I have had questions in the past, but I think
maybe he was already the super intelligent AI.
If nothing else,
sent by the future AI to stoke society to accept the robotic overlords. But it appears that may not be the case.
If nothing else, I think I'm convinced that he is indeed a human, as all good politicians are, and let's keep it that way. All right, folks, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at Canary Cry Radio. Again, make sure to check out Canary Cry News Talk, YouTube, Rumble, and your favorite podcast player. And here's an invitation. If you know anyone who you think would be an excellent person to spend some time with, if they're interesting, have weird ideas, or have been shouting from the rooftops for many years, maybe even decades, and are finally ready to be heard by the general population, if culture has caught up to them. Those are the kind of people we like talking to on this show. Or perhaps you are one of those types. You can go ahead and send us an email at canarycryradio@gmail.com. We'd love to take a look and lend a listening ear to all types like that. So there you go, folks. Remember to tune in next time to Canary Cry Radio. But until then, think outside the cage.